I'll first list out all the steps for writing a Spring web service application, then we'll follow the same steps and develop, right? So first, decide how a request request XML should be. Request and response XML should be, right? That means write two files, request.xml and response.xml. This is the first step. Then second step is to generate a .xsd file using any third party tool like XML Beans. Third party tool. So now we have the XSD file, the data contract is ready, right? Then third step is based on the request.xml and response.xml, write the interface and write its implementation. So we have the implementation for the interface and implementation, right? Then next step is we want to expose this implementation as a web service. We want the methods inside this implementation to be accessed through web service, right? So the next step is to create a web application, create a Spring MVC web application. Means in this again the steps are in web.xml configure configure the controller select. Okay. Then fifth step is in the XML define a bean which generates WSDL file. As I showed you, WSDL file can be automatically generated by just a simple configuration. This one, ws : dynamic WSDL. By using this tag, it can generate a WSDL file automatically. So after setting up in the XML file, you generate the WSDL file by using bean. Okay. Then sixth step is to write a endpoint. Write a endpoint which uses marshalling. In this case, we will use an endpoint which will marshal. Alright. And here I missed. Decide how a request and response should look like and write request.xml, response.xml, right? I told, right? Also generate corresponding classes. Corresponding Java classes. Means, what do I mean by it? Here in the request.xml, right? Write a class called get temperature request with city and list of dates. Similarly in response, right? Then the next step will be, after writing the endpoint, write endpoint mapping. Configure endpoint mapping bean in XML, right? These are the steps, primary steps. Okay, we'll do it one by one. Let us create a web application. Dynamic web application. Web service using Spring. Take all defaults. Generate the web.xml. Finish. Okay. Then first step I already have given you. First step is to generate the request file and request.xml and response.xml, but I gave you already. So copy them to your web.inf folder, request.xml and response.xml. Yeah, it is already shared. I will decide my class name will be get temperature request. I will create a class with this name, get temperature request, in my source. First, we'll create a package com.sapient. And inside this, I'll create a new class with this name, get temperature request. And inside this, what all variables? One string with name city and list of dates according to this request. Private string city, private list of date. So dates, date from java.util. Then generate getters and setters. Similarly, I need to generate for response. Tell me now, the class will be get temperature response, okay? But it's a list of temperature info objects. First, I need to create temperature info object. A new class, temperature info. Inside temperature info, what all are required? City, date, min, max, average. City and date. City will be string, date will be date, and these are all doubles, right? I'll create private string city, private date, what is the name? Date only. Then private double min private double max private double average getter sensors. So we completed the temperature info class. Then next step will be to write a class called get temperature response. Get temperature response should have a list of temperature info. Creating get temperature response class. It should have list of temperature infos. Okay, then generate getter sensors. Okay, so first step is done. Second step is to generate XSD file by using that XML files, right? So to generate them, I have shared you XML beans current. This is a third party tool. Extract it. Yeah. Inside this XML beans bin folder, there is inst2.2xsd. This is the one which we can use, right? Now what I can do is I can keep this path inside the environment variable path so that I can access this inst2xsd from anywhere. But right now I don't want to keep. What I will do is I will copy these two, request.xml and response.xml, to same directory instead of keeping that in path. Okay, then use command prompt, go to this directory, then execute a command like this. See the command, whatever is there in the screen. inst2xsd hyphen design rd space hyphen enumerations space never space request.xml, request is capital R, and response.xml. If you execute this, in the same folder you should be able to see XSD file with name schema 0.xsd. In the generate file, this is the element for get temperature request, which is having string city and date. Date can occur from 0 to unbounded, and get temperature response, it's also a list, so min occurs is 0 and max occurs is unbounded, and it's having a sequence of this min, max and average, and these are the attributes, right? So now copy this XSD file and paste it inside your webinf folder. Better to rename it, do something like temperatures.xsd. Okay, this is the XSD file. Which was generated automatically. Now the second step also is completed. Based on the request.xml and response.xml, write the interface and its implementation, whatever you want. So by seeing these XMLs, what you understand? How to, can you tell me what method can I write in my interface? By seeing the request.xml, okay, I'll open this request.xml. Yeah, by seeing this, what method? Just tell me, just get. What are we trying to do? We are trying to get temperatures of a city on particular dates, right? I can write a interface called as a weather service, which is telling about the weather of some cities, right? I can write an interface called weather service, and I can add a method inside it called get temperatures, which will take parameter city and dates, list of dates. So I'll try to write a interface weather service. So in this I will write a method public get temperatures it should take string city comma list of date object. Right? See, according to this request.xml, it is taking one city and list of date objects, the parameters. These are parameters. And what is the return type? See, response is list of temperature info. So the return type of this method is list of temperature info. So this is the interface. Now let us write the implementation for this interface. Whatever implementation we want, we can write. Right now I'll just write a dummy implementation. Weather service IMPL implements weather service. Yeah, see, this is the one. Now for each date, for one date, one temperature info object, right? See this request object. Request object is sending 3 dates, right? Response object is having 3 temperature info objects. So for each date, one temperature info object. So I need to iterate over the dates. For each date, I need to create an object of temperature info. Also I'll create a list of temperature info because it has written list of temperature info, temperature info is equals to new array list. Then here I'll add temperature infos dot add temperature info. And what is this temperature info containing? It's containing city, date, everything. So temperature info dot set city. What is the city? Whatever parameter has been passed, right? See the XML. City is same as whatever temperature, whatever parameter has been passed here. Here I pass Bangalore. The response also this all for all city is Bangalore. So temperature at city, temperature info dot set date. Date is the current date object, and for this date in this city I need to decide what is the min, max and all. For now, for this dummy implementation, I will generate a random number. Temperature info dot set min. Let's say math dot random is there. Math dot random into 10. It will generate a random number between 1 to 10, right? Similarly, set max and set average. So finally it will return the list of temperature infos. This is a dummy implementation which I gave. The next step, okay, these 3 steps are completed. The next step is to create a Spring MVC web application. We already created a dynamic application. In web.xml we have to configure that servlet. So going to web.xml. I also don't remember the servlet name. So I'll just copy paste from one of the applications which I have. You can also copy paste from here. Yep, see, the servlet name should be, servlet class name should be arc.springframework.ws.transport.http.message dispatcher servlet. What is the next step? We have to define a bean which will generate WSDL file automatically. ws::dynamic WSDL. It has to be defined like this. It has to be defined like this. ws::dynamic WSDL. So first generate an XML file in which we can define beans. Now my servlet name is spring-ws. So the XML file will be spring-ws-servlet.xml. So create a bean configuration file in WebINF. New other spring bean configuration file spring-ws-servlet.xml. Oh, don't generate it again first. First I didn't copy the required libraries. So first if you copy the required libraries, then only when you are generating XML file, see here, I got an empty XSD, right? Because there are no libraries. If there are libraries, then this wizard will automatically detect the existing XSDs. So before generating this XML file, copy the libraries, all the Spring libraries which I gave to you, which we used in our previous application, right? Where we had this is not libraries. Spring libraries we just have to add inside WebINF lib only. WebINF lib. Say I'll add it. Copy the lib directory from other web application which you have already created. Delete this lib directory and paste it. Right? Automatically it will get updated here. See, web libraries, right? Few more libraries have to be added. I didn't include the caster libraries. I have shared it here. In this I have given you caster.xml, right? Caster.zip file. Extract it. Inside caster there are some jar files. Copy all these jar files into your WebINF lib. Now it should look like this. All the caster libraries should be copied. I didn't give these libraries to you already when I gave you. So this caster is a third-party tool for mapping XML to objects automatically. Marshalling and unmarshalling can be done by using caster. So that's why we have to include these jars also. So next step will be generating bean configuration file. Spring -ws -servlet.xml. And you see here web services is there. Select that web services XSD, right? Next finish. So now web-services will be automatically coming here, right? This namespace is imported. You didn't get it? No? I think you are missing some more libraries. 1 minute, I'll give it to you. Now we need to write a bean which will generate the WSDL file dynamically. So take WebServices-dynamic WSDL. ID you can give it as temperatures, anything you can give. Port type name. Port type name is class name, or you can give anything. What in your WSDL file, this will be the name given to the port type. It need not be the class name. It can be say something like weather. And then, and what else is required? Location URI. Another attribute, location URI. With what URL you want this service to be accessible. So it will be something like http://localhost : my port number is 6060. You can give your port number. / my application name is what? Web services using Spring. Web services using Spring. Web service, okay. Web service using Spring / services. Services. Why services I gave? Because in web.xml, if you observe, I have mapped this dispatcher servlet to /services. Otherwise, if I just give /star here, I need not give services here. Okay. And inside this, we need to give the XSD file location. It is /webinf in caps / the XSD file name is temperatures.xsd. So we have developed it. Right? The next step here is write a endpoint which uses marshalling. Right? Okay. What is the class to be extended when using marshalling? abstract marshalling payload endpoint. So I will write a class extending this abstract marshalling payload endpoint. Okay, I'll write a class temperature marshalling endpoint. It will be internally using marshalling. Extends abstract marshalling payload endpoint, right? Finish. But I understand that it is deprecated, right? So why it is deprecated? See, the version of web services which we are using 2.0, it was there in 1.5. The earlier version was 1.5. In 1.5 this was the way, extending abstract marshalling payload endpoint. But in 2.0 they have deprecated it and they ask us to use annotations, right? But till now we didn't see how to use annotations. We don't know whether you will be using the latest 2.0 or 1.5. We'll write it by, even though it is deprecated, we'll write it with only few small, very small changes. I'll use annotations later. We'll modify in same class. Right now we'll do it. Okay? Invoke internal. To this method, the request object will be passed. Whenever we make a request, the payload, the request payload is like this. The request XML will come in this format, right? This is marshalling endpoint. So the XML will be automatically converted to the corresponding object. What is the corresponding object? We wrote this object, right? Later we'll configure for marshalling. That XML request will be converted to this object, right? And this object is passed to this endpoint, right? See, this is an endpoint. Whenever I make a web service request by using a client, till now we didn't write the client. Let's assume by using a client, I'll make a web service request. The request, what request will make? We'll make a SOAP request, right? SOAP is a protocol which tells it that whenever you are making a request, the request has to be in a particular format. In a SOAP request document, there will be headers and also payload, right? The payload will be in this form whenever we are making a request, right? So the payload will be automatically converted to the corresponding object by the marshaller. The corresponding object for it is get temperature request. So automatically whenever a web service request comes, this endpoint will be called, and the parameter which is passed is nothing but the get temperature request. Okay, now I'll make it as arg0 as request. Okay, then I need to typecast it. Get temperature request is equals to typecast it to right. Now whenever a request comes, this method will be invoked, and I got the request object. Now here in this endpoint, I need to actually invoke the service, the other service. In Spring MVC applications, what? Whenever request comes, it will come to controller. Controller will invoke the business logic service class. Here service is nothing but my weather service IMPL. My endpoint should invoke that weather service IMPL. So my endpoint is dependent on weather service, right? So I'll create a variable private weather service and auto wire it right? So it is auto wiring by type, it will try to find a bean of same type, right? But did I mention that bean inside the XML? No. But I want to use annotation on top of weather service IMPL. What annotation can I write on top of it which will be equivalent to bean definition? Component, or at the rate of service, or at the rate of repository. But now I will use component. So I need not write this as a bean inside my XML, right? Yes. Or let us leave this. We'll configure everything in XML. Anyway, we are writing XML, right? So I will write this as a bean in my XML, so it will be very clear. Once you see the XML, you can understand everything. Bean ID is equals to WS, class is equals to weather service IMPL. That's it. This is the weather service class. And I used auto wiring. If auto wiring has to work, which is the tag I need to write? If auto wired annotation has to be recognized, context colon annotation config, right? Yes. So I need to import context namespace now. So go to namespaces and select context namespace. Then again go back to source. Here context namespace is imported. Then I will say context colon annotation config, right? So now my temperature marshalling endpoint is auto wired with weather service implementation, right? Will be auto wired. Then here I need to execute weather service dot get temperatures. Get temperatures requires city. Now how to get the city? Get temperature request dot get city will give me the city, and similarly get temperature request dot get dates will give me the list of dates. So by using this request object, I am invoking the actual service, and this is returning me list of temperature info. I'll take it. List of temperature info, temperatures, then I have got a list of temperatures, so I can make a response object. Get temperature response. Response is equals to new get temperature response, and response dot set temperatures. I'll pass the temperatures. Then I will return the response. So now my marshalling endpoint, it is taking the request object, invoking the service, preparing the response object, and returning the response. Simple. So next, what is the step? What is the next step? Write an endpoint. Configure the endpoint to map this bean. So whenever request comes, it has to map it to this. The request has to be mapped to this endpoint. Whenever a request comes, it will always come to this servlet. Servlet has to know for this web service request what is the endpoint to be mapped, right? Similarly, yesterday in Spring MVC, whenever new request comes, it will come to the servlet. Servlet will use handler mapping to decide which controller to execute. Similar to handler mapping, we need to configure something called as endpoint request mapping, right? So we need to write a bean for mapping it. Write a bean tag what's the class for it? Class is equals to payload root. What's the class name? I'll just tell you. Yeah, payload root qname endpoint mapping. Payload root qname annotation qname endpoint mapping, right? For this there is a dependency mappings name is equals to mappings is of type properties, so props we have to use. Prop key is equals to, now what is the namespace of my request? This is the namespace, right? Key is equals to, you have to write it like this in curly brackets. This is the namespace, and after this the tag name. So this is the key, right? This will be the payload, right? In payload this is the namespace and this is the tag name. If any request comes with this namespace and this tag name, we have to mention like this. It has to be mapped to which endpoint? Oh, endpoint also have to configure as a bean. First I'll configure that id is equals to weather service endpoint class is equals to temperature marshalling endpoint, right? So any request coming with any payload with this tag we map to this weather service endpoint. So this is how we mapped the web service payload request to endpoint. So we have mapped the endpoint also. The next step is, here we are using marshalling endpoint. We need to tell to this endpoint how to marshal the XML to request object and how to unmarshal response object to XML, right? So we need to configure about marshaller. We are using a third party caster marshaller, so we need to configure that bean. I'll just open that configuration here for marshaller. Yeah, see, this is the marshaller. We have to configure this bean caster marshaller, and we have to specify the mapping.xml file where we are mapping the XML to object. Okay, first we will write a bean for caster marshaller. ID is equals to marshaller, class is equals to caster marshaller. This has a dependency mapping location, value is equals to class path colon mapping.xml, means I will keep this mapping.xml inside the class path, right? So now we need to write a mapping.xml following that XSD or DTD. So the next step is to write the mapping.xml. In this case, I'm just copy pasting here the one which I have already written in source. I'll just open it and show you. Here I am writing the mapping for a class com.training.weather, but now my package is com.sapient. Just change accordingly. com.sapient.get temperatures request is it, but here my class is get temperature request. And this is the namespace. Is this the same namespace inside my request.xml? Yes. Yes, also now we need to write date field handler. That is simple. So here just to analyze it, we are mapping this class to a tag called get temperature request with this namespace. Inside the class there is a field called city of type string. We are mapping it to a tag called element called city. Similarly, dates is mapped of type array list is mapped by using a handler called date field handler. So this date field handler should convert string to date and date to string. Similarly, all the other things, right? Now we need to write date field handler. com.sapient.date field handler. New class date field handler. It should extend generalized field handler. Generalized field handler. And we need to implement all these methods. Convert upon get, convert upon set, get field type. Now this handler is for what type? String to date, right? Here you need to write return date dot class. You need to tell this is for date type. java.util.date. Okay. Now convert upon set. Upon get, whenever you try to get, you will get what object? Whenever it is getting, whenever web service is getting, it will get a string. Here we have to take this string date as string. Okay. Convert it to date object and return date object. Now I want to convert string to date, we need to use simple date format. So create a variable private simple date format. Simple date format. And with what is the format I am giving? See the request. It is YY mmdd. So y hyphen 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 dd. Then to convert it, simple date format dot parse date as string. It will return the date object. Okay, before converting you have to convert it to string. Format is for converting. Sorry, which method is this to convert? See, parse method will take string and return date. Convert upon get, when the web service is getting a request, it has to convert string to date. So now the return type should be date, so we have to use parse method, not this one. Okay. Right? It is throwing an exception. Okay, I'll surround it with try catch. Similarly, here also I'll be getting a date object. Now return simple date format dot format and pass a date object. Here also I need to typecast. Okay. So this will take care of converting string to date and date to string. Specified the handler here whenever it has to convert. Right? The next thing is we need to tell about the marshaller. Where do we create marshaller? This is a marshaller, right? We need to give the response of this marshaller to the endpoint. Whenever new request comes, the endpoint will use this marshaller to marshal XML to objects. So we have to give the reference of this. We have to inject the marshaller here. So there is a dependency on this. Name is equals to marshaller. Ref is equals to same marshaller. In this case, marshaller and unmarshalling is taken care by same class. So I need to inject another property. Unmarshaller, again it's the same class. Right? That's it. Yes. Inside my weather service IMP, I guess I have inside my weather service endpoint I have used auto wiring. Is that? Yes. That's all. Now we will deploy this. We check if any exceptions. No exceptions. Then How to see the WSDL file? What is the URL? It is temperatures is the bean name, right? So here slash temperatures dot ws, temperatures dot WSDL. Is there any exception? No. Here I'll just leave some mistake. Okay, let me check again. Where? Below where? Where? In which bin? Here. Where?
Mapping location.
Huh.
Value equal to class path. One more.
Okay. Class path and anywhere other spelling mistakes. Localhost 8080 slash web service using Spring slash services, and my web.xml okay slash services. Oh, there was an exception. What is it saying? The content elements caster file mapping.xml at line number 15 column number 10. You got it? Line number 15. Oh, okay, I think I will get it now. Again I'll start. In source, because we gave class path colon. I think spelling mistake. Again some exception. Could not find com.sapient at temperatures response. We are again in mapping.xml. I think I gave temperatures. It is temperature. Yeah. Now again I should restart. It should work. Yeah, 1 minute. When I got an exception, it is saying get average temperature info accepting temperature info accepting. Oh, get average. I gave average as this one, right? 1 minute. Here I need to give AVG. In my class I gave AVG. That was a problem again. We want to see web.xml, right? Just check if you are getting it or not. Even before going to write the client, let us modify this endpoint itself. I told this is deprecated in new web service specification. No, deprecated means, okay, as this is deprecated in the latest version of Spring WS 2.0, they are recommending us to use annotations. Let us just change this endpoint to use annotations, right? So I'll not modify this class. Let this class be there. I'll write another class, new class, temperature marshalling endpoint using annotations. When you are using annotation, this class need not extend any class. Just you have to annotate the class with endpoint. This will become an endpoint, and as it is not implementing any interface, you can write your own method. So I'll write a method public. There are return type is get temperature response. The method name I am writing as get temperatures, which will take request object is get temperature request. Right. So I'll just make it to return null right now. So I wrote my own method. Is that? Now I need to annotate. I need to tell when this method has to be executed. Whenever a request matching, whenever a request is coming, whose payload root tag is matching, right? So I have to annotate it with payload root local part. Name of that local part of the payload is what? Tell me. See, this is a request.xml. This is how the request comes. What is the local name? Get temperature request. The local part here is get temperature. Whenever request is coming with this local part and comma namespace URI is equals to, what is the namespace here? This one. So whenever a request comes with this local path and this namespace, this is method has to be executed. That's all, right? So tell me, if I'm using annotations now, is this required? Here actually, when I was not using annotations, here I was actually mapping this namespace URL and local path to this weather service. Now this is not required, so I can comment out, right? But now I want annotations to be recognized. Payload annotation has to be recognized, right? So if payload annotation has to be recognized, you need to configure another bean. Class is equals to payload annotation method endpoint mapping. See the name. It is also a mapping, and just like endpoint mapping, it is also endpoint mapping but using what? Payload root annotation method. On the top of the method, it will recognize the annotations, right? If payload annotation has to be recognized, you have to write this bean tag, right? Then here, coming to this class again, what I need to do, I need to call the weather service class, right? It is also dependent on weather service, so I'll create a variable of weather service, and inject it, auto wire it, so automatically it will be wired, no problem, right? And here weather service dot get temperatures is returning, it requires what? City. So in this request object, city is there, so request dot get city, and again here request dot get dates. This will return an object of list of temperature info, list of temperature info, temperature info is equals to. Then I will return, then I'll create new get temperature response. Then temperature response dot set temperatures, it requires a list of temperatures, and then return the response. So this endpoint is very simple, it is using marshaller, right? And now if I am using like this, tell me again, this I am not using, right? This was the old endpoint without using annotations. This I will comment out. Right? Now I will declare a bean. Class is equals to temperature using annotation, the one using annotations. I'll give the ID temp endpoint. Earlier, when I was writing temperature marshalling endpoint, it was extending abstract marshalling endpoint. It was having set marshaller, set unmarshaller, starter methods. That's why I was able to inject marshaller, unmarshaller, right? But now when using annotations, this is not having any superclass, so I cannot inject marshaller and unmarshaller. How does it know that it has to use marshaller or unmarshaller, right? So we have to tell that one. So in order to tell, what we have to do is like this. We have to write a bean called generic marshalling endpoint adapter and specify the marshaller and adapter unmasked adapter. Right? So writing a bean again, bean class is equals to generic marshalling class generic marshalling method endpoint adapter, generic marshalling method endpoint adapter. And we have to inject a property called as marshaller, reference is equals to marshaller, and again for unmarshaller reference is equals to marshaller, right? So these are the things we need to change when using annotations. One minute. Web service template dot marshal send and receive. So I had to pass the request object. So what the web service template will do? It will first marshal, means it will convert the object to XML, then send a request, and then receive. Then this method is returning an object. It is nothing but the response object. So I'll typecast it to get temperature response. So this web service template will take care of marshalling, unmarshalling, sending a SOAP request, getting a response. Everything will be taken care by web service template, right? So whatever response I got the get response object. So but what is the return type here? List of temperature info, response object dot response dot get temperatures will return the list of temperatures, right? So this is how a proxy is actually implementing same interface. Client will call the method on the proxy. This proxy is internally using web service template to marshal, send a SOAP request, receive a SOAP request, unmarshal, and do the response. Everything is taken care by web service template, right? So now the web service proxy is dependent on web service template. Now we have to configure web service template inside the client XML. So now I will write a separate client. Client can be on a standalone machine, but right now we are writing the client on the same machine. Now I will write a client.xml, another XML file. It should be in source client.xml. Here I need to configure a bean ID is equals to web service template class is equals to web service template, and it has a dependency the dependency is service URL, I guess. No, default URI. Value is equals to what is the URI for accessing this web service we configured here. This is the URI for accessing the web service. So we have to give the URI to the web service template, right? And also we have to inject a property called as marshaller. So what I'll do is I'll copy paste this marshaller bean from this to here. Here also the client also needs to marshal and unmarshal, so it requires a marshaller, same thing. So I'll give the reference of this bean and also unmarshaller, same. So now the web service template knows how to marshal and unmarshal, and it knows about what is the URL of the web service, right? So it can make a request on our behalf. Then I need to create a bean for proxy, for my proxy. ID is equals to my weather service proxy. I'll give weather service only. Class is equals to weather service proxy, right? Is it having any dependencies? Yes, it is having a dependency on web service template. So instead of auto varying, I could auto vary it, no problem. But here also I'll write property name is equals to I should generate getters and setters, is it? Okay. Setter measure is sufficient, node of getter. I'll just generate the setter. Now I'll use control space here, it will show. Reference is equals to web service template, right? Now on the client, what I can do, I can get this bean, invoke the method, that's it. So in client.java, I will create an object of application context. Okay, if you want time, in client I'll create an object of application context. Which will read from client.xml. Then context dot get bean. The bean name is this weather service. And its type is weather service dot class. So I'll take it in weather service class reference. Then I'll call weather service dot get temperatures of city. I'll just say Bangalore. I want a list of dates, right? So what I'll do is arrays dot as list. I'll pass a new date object. Only one date I am passing, okay? Let us see whether we'll get the temperatures for this date or not. this is returning a list of temperatures. List of temperature info temperature info is equals to. Now I'll iterate through all these temperature infos and print. Let us see what will happen. System.out.println, I'll just print min, yes, info dot get min. Similarly, I'll print max and average. Okay, everything is done now. I'll just run it and check. Getting some exception, class cast exception. Okay, in date field handler, it's saying cannot cast date to. Okay, I think it's reverse. I have to do the reverse. Just have to do the reverse. Right? Okay, I need to restart the server again. Okay, then I'm running it again, the client. Again I got an exception. Not found. In the client, what did I write? Web service using Spring/services. It's saying it's not found.